Hello there, it's me again, the guy with the weird weather forecast. And it's not weather, it's probably something else. So, take it away from there, wherever that is, please. Whoever you are, who are you again?
Me?
Mhm.
I am I'm John Christopher Kern,
Yes.
and I'm here to mourn the predicted passing of liberalism in
Oh, yeah.
America.
Oh, yeah, that's
That's what I'm.
so timely as ICE continues to murdering away on the people. And I already yesterday had a weird thought when we talked about From and the former Eastern German Democratic Republic that decided not so democratically to shoot people at the border, at the Iron Curtain.
Yeah.
And now we got all this shit coming back as a farce with Trump's little border drama and his wall and shooting people, but inside the country, and they don't want to get
Yeah.
away. They actually want to. So this is so farcical. Ah, liberalism is dead. So that's the good news. Where do we go from here? Do you got a map for us?
I do have a map, but it's which I've been working on.
I've seen
It
the map.
is
So
it
confusing.
it's so confusing. However, here I'll flash it on right now. Share my screen. Let me bring this up to my screen. Now, you may hate me. That's quite all right. But this is all for your own good. I know, right? Um, yeah, yeah, it is American, but okay, okay, okay. The right, stillborn. Yes, yes, yes. So here's a little bit of history um, of this very, very complicated idea. And when I say idea, I mean in a broad, dare I say, Hegelian structure. An idea is a world for Hegel. And he just, it's a technical term, but think of it this way. When you look at a group of buildings, You can understand these buildings as an engineer. You can understand these buildings as land to be taxed. You can understand these buildings in terms of their ecological relationship to the environment. But now, let me change your experience of being in these buildings. And you can again think of these buildings as an engineer, as in terms of their environment, or in any particular ideational framework. But if I called these buildings a school, then and pointed out the desks and the blackboards, it's not a corporation, it's not a business, it's a school. Then you will think of these buildings in terms of education. In other words, you can't explain. If I was to give you a tour of Los Angeles and take you to the last college I taught at, I'd bring you to a group of buildings that you would understand in terms of the idea of education. Educate. This is the classic Hegelian idea. It's you think of education as a process with inputs, students, teachers, a body of knowledge, a process of books, written material texts, a process of transferring this body of knowledge from the institutional sort of residents to the students. This is sort of an input-output system, but at the same time, it is a matter of teaching, of education, of knowledge and learning.
I have to I have to admit something. I already fucked up again. Our viewers didn't listen because they couldn't hear me. I also muted myself. You could hear me. I completely fucked up my introduction. Nobody is probably following us at this point, totally confused, and only hear you, one side of it. So today is, I don't know, it's something else. So this is also very live beating me in the face. This is another lesson. Us. At first, you, while we were setting up the stream, we were meeting in Google meetings as usual, and your mic had been deactivated just while I was starting the stream. And then we had to make it all happen again, and and all this messed up back and forth. So again, this is Kern and Kernel. Thank you for still holding on. We are going to do this. We're going to make this. We're going to make this work also from the point of education, because liberalism seems to be pretty dead, considering this situation we find ourselves in at this moment in time, with people being murdered, liberalism dead. We really need to start at the beginning and re-educate ourselves, unlearn a bunch of stupid madness before we can actually educate ourselves. So that would be my first inquiry to you, after coming clear with the sound. But how do we reinvent education or maybe I should let you continue on the path of explaining how we think in the first place. It's a confused day. What can I say?
Yeah, it's confused day. Yeah. So I'm going to assume that you heard me discuss about the Hegel, the idea,
Yeah,
as sort of a way of experiencing an institution. And I talked about education is the idea of the school, of the university. Liberalism, I'm going to argue, is the idea of the modern constitutional nation state. It is the idea of the modern constitutional nation state. To assert another way, now I could be more brutal about this and say modernism is liberalism. But to unpack that, we need to talk about the modern constitutional nation state. And now, so here's a history. We have been living in because what we see now, as Dr. Kern has pointed out, that an endpoint of liberalism. We have seen that things are now seem to fall apart. We do not know what is going to happen. But this is the endpoint, it seems. By the way, don't forget, people made this had these same thoughts during World War II. We had these, this is a moment of crisis. We haven't been in such a crisis since World War II. It hasn't gotten to that point, but it's been threatening now with this as Marx calls Napoleon III, this one amazing mediocrity. That is one of the astonishments of our current crisis. We are driven to this point by a mediocrity, by one of the most banal characters to ever come upon the political stage. Sort of, he reminds me, since I'm also been doing some stuff with World War I, he kind of reminds me of the Kaiser in his stupidity. But how did we get here? How did we get here? So I want to give a small history of liberalism and explain it at the same time, because liberalism, as I've said, is a complicated beast. That has changed a number of significant times. It's a word, it's an explanation, it's a set of values, and these have substantively changed since the beginning of this word, Now, this is going to be brutally short, and those of you who know intellectual history will, I hope, have problems with what I'm about to say, because I will be leaving stuff out, because I'm going to try and do this in 15, 20 minutes. So I expect there to be gaps, and if our audience is good, then they will point out and criticize what I'm saying, because yes, I will be leaving out some gaps. There is a sense, or to begin to explain liberalism comes, of course, after the French Revolution in Europe, in Europe, and they are starting out this contradiction. Is we can see it quite clearly in the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen, in which the French revolutionaries claim that they are constructing an institution through which the people can realize their will. This is a sense of or this refers to an idea of democracy, the people. But at the same time, the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen says, and private property is sacred. Private property is sacred. This is this we can say is the essential contradiction from which the problems of liberalism develop. The first ideas of liberalism, we can say are French, and they are built on the idea that a liberal constitution is one in which the executive is responsible to the law, That, in other words, liberalism is a theory about limiting the executive to a certain degree, responsible to the law that is established by the people. In other words, there is a relationship between the people, the law, and the executive, or the king, that liberalism, the word liberalism, this is connected with the idea of liberty, which is connected to the idea that the parliament, the assembly, can put institutional limitations on what the executive does. The parliament, the assembly, this is the locus for the British of liberty. To put it another way, is that in English, they're much more clear about this, is that the state must be pure. The state must be clean of corruption. In other words, there must be an apparatus which functions in terms of a process that does not require any individual ideals, any individual will. This is liberalism, the beginning of liberalism as a machine, as a procedure. The idea, however, in any system, there needs to be a decision-making body. And the first questions were transferring legitimacy, the exercise of legitimate power from the king to the assemblies. Again, the French did this first early, this is what liberal constitutionalism was. And then the English formed the first liberal party. And the idea is to shut out corruption, or really shut out to sort of purify the system so that there is no irregular participation. In other words, that's the idea. That and this is a classic bourgeois understanding. Liberalism thus works on the dream that we can eradicate the arbitrary will. That's what we don't want. We want a system that in which there is no individual that establishes law merely because they like it or they don't. This is the odd thing is that this beginning of liberalism is what is exactly the end of it right now. It was the framers of the American Constitution, one of the first, one of the earliest liberal documents were very clear that the president should not have immunity, that the president is responsible for the law, that after his term, a president must be able to be held accountable to the law. This was the original idea of republicanism, which became liberalism, the idea of the public interest, res publica, the public thing. The state itself is not private property. So what's significant now?
No.
What's significant now is that the Supreme Court decision versus has just, I forget, it slipped my mind. The U.S. v. Trump maybe is or not is that Trump, the Supreme Court has given Trump immunity. Trump now can perpetrate any crime, even treason, or what you and I might call treason, and he is immune because he was doing this in some state interest that was instituted by only himself, may even be in his mind.
So there we go again with the divine right of kings that just had been handed down in this process of, you could say, whitewashing via the bourgeois takeover, and now we are sliding in this, already, what is it, ordoliberal pipeline stage of the pipeline into fascism, or there's also something else going on. Let's see if I can get this together. When you say you want to liberate people from the vulgarities and stupidity of the single person who just pushes his will through, then why just work with private property and establish an ideology out of this, if you want, subculture that already excludes big chunks of the people, if not humanity, and then goes out into the world to enslave them, to then reproduce all the shit in the end with a more industrial thing going on there. But so there's something seriously rotten in the state of Denmark. And that's in Greenland or Denmark. I mean,
in fact, I will say this, that there is, I would say now, I assume people are thinking it, there, you can get a nostalgia for slavery. You can read that into what the Republicans are saying now. But which is the other side of a return of monarchy. What we want in opposition to that is something that Kant calls actually automaticity, sheer objective procedure. If the state is going to be motivated by a will, that will must be purified. That will must be purified. And that's what liberalism does. Liberalism establishes state procedure, something like the science, to the extent that there are the inputs, the scheme of elections and political parties and lobbyists. These are the inputs to the system. Political action groups. This is the way that we, from outside the system, in our private lives, because liberalism is all about separating state and civil society, establishing the difference between the public and the private. In order to become a state official, you have to go through some procedure in order to get that power of as Weber says, legitimate force. These input institutions purify the private interest and establish the neutral state officials, who then, through a neutral bureaucracy, through which, but by the way, this neutrality is established through what we call equality. Anybody can vote as long as they are a citizen. Now, it took time for this to develop. Liberalism, in this sense, was developing, indeed, throughout this era. And I mean era, I mean after the French Revolution, the 1820s and 30s, when the French were talking about a liberal constitution. The revolutions of 1848, liberal were the revolutions of the liberal bourgeoisie, and then we have the progressive movement, and then we have the welfare states, and with that we have a fundamental change, but it's the same system. But I'll get there in a sec. The liberals in the United States set out to purify input systems and output systems with the word equality. The state is neutral as to who participates, as long as you are a citizen and have the right to vote, and it distributes state benefits through a neutral procedure. What it depends upon is principle. And the principle here is again, another element of a scientific element. The principle is what sort of state purpose that is connected to welfare or the good. So the principle of education, state benefits are distributed equally in terms of that principle, or the principle of food that is not poisoned, or which is again the principle of welfare, or the principle of free competition, again justified to the idea of some good, because competition leads to in the marketplace leads to some better good. So what the politicians do with this is or state leaders, when they become politicians, they put forth their ideas through a media, through the press or the radio or the television or the internet, and set up a market for the vote. Then, when they are duly christened, when they have been anointed, when the sacred words have been said, the vow has been taken, the oath has been taken, they become able to decide through policy as legislators. And then as they develop again, they as judges, they adjudicate as to whether or not these outputs have been properly administered in terms of the right. This is the liberal system. It's liberal because it's protected by and established by rights. Rights which are, and this is crucial, due to individuals. Equal rights. You have the right to vote is an equal right. The right to some good, as long as you fit some principled criteria, you are entitled to this benefit, to this good.
The right to bear arms. You know, I'm teething here at the edge of my seat, but I know what you're doing. That's a descriptive statement. You're describing liberalism, how it's supposed to be, how it's looking on paper. And I'm constantly, in my mind, all the time, pictures popping up from the exact opposite. And that would be then my normative statement or my opinion about all that and the facts I see about the state of being. So you could actually also just describe socialism as we are about to planning it, because we can do better liberalism. This is a pile of bullshit. But it kind of looks good on paper. And when you mix in Marx and a lot of thought via Hegel from whatever, then you might actually get somewhere and have something that actually works and doesn't just fall apart where you try to touch it. Oh, that's my freedom. Oh shit, where is it?
Yes, right. So rights work in two areas. Again, inputs and outputs. Now, in American political science, we make a distinction between rights and liberties. A right is something that grants you access to a procedure, like voting. Voting is a right. Like printing in the press, that's a right. Liberty is you have a right to a thing. Liberty is something that limits the state in the output sense. In other words, is security, which is the use of power against criminality. What we have, though, to protect ourselves from the police in case they are dominated by some evil actor is we have civil liberties, which is the right to a fair trial, the right to judicial procedure, the right to a free press here. Here, that right is an autonomy right. To a certain degree, civil liberties grant us autonomy. Liberalism means both those things. It means the ability to participate in the state, but the ability at the same time to be free of the state. Liberty in this sense is individual autonomy. It's that you are acting in some sphere, in some activity where the state cannot touch you. Autonomy, Greek, means self-law. You decide for yourself what you are going to do. This, so we have state which is established through power, but limited in its power in order to do certain things. On the other side is civil society. Now, you may, I have mentioned Marx's, Plato's point of philosophy is to make friends of the lion and the many-headed beast. Both Marx and Hegel play on this. The lion is the lion of the state, the people. In our role as active citizens, we are establishing justice. We are establishing welfare, and we also establishing the beautiful, which is another story.
By the way, beautiful. You sounded really beautiful just a few minutes ago. Now your line is kind of breaking up and you're lagging your video feed. Is there something you could turn off to make this work again? Yes.
How about now?
Better, yes.
Okay. So
no, not really.
No, right.
Okay, we gotta work with it.
They're onto us.
Definitely onto us, man.
They've chased.
Sorry, I was distracting you.
No, that's all right. The state is where we are. The lines of it's where we have we rule through the line of the people. You could call it the ego. it's the decision-making process. But there is a flip side to this, and that is the many-headed beast. That is civil society in its pluralistic variety. Different institutions, different sort of spheres, different sorts of work styles, different sorts of ethnicities, different regions, different territories, different cities, different families. This is the world of where people are autonomous and they decide in their own private lives. This is liberal freedom to the extent that it is free from the state. The state where we are free to establish our own personal lives in terms of our own personal visions. The vision of the state is structured through these purifying institutions established by equality, what essentially serve to neutralize. This is the liberal democratic state, and there is the state, which is, well, it's the state of it's the civil society of private interests. This is where we decide on our own. This is what Marx calls where snug the joiner is, because Marx uses heavily throughout his work, oddly enough, Shakespeare, and in particular, Midsummer's Night Dream. And the idea of dream is going to return here when we get to, well, the man who transformed liberalism and made it set it on its trail to self-destruction. Through the progressive era, what we hit into the 20s, or making that move, there was something that was not a period after World War I that happened in Europe, happened in America. The 1918, 1920 is the time in which there was a reaction against this sort of thinking, both in America and, of course, in Germany and in Europe. This was when this was the rise of the KKK, anti-communist laws, anti-union laws, the beginning of the F.D.R. This was a shutdown of progressivism. What we then had was what this is. This pulled the state out of civil society, which then thrived and gave us the 20s. And in the 20s, it was the time of everybody can do whatever they want. It was, and of course, capitalism ran wild. The other logic of this is capitalism. And now capitalism was thought to be tamed through the progressive era, but now it's unleashed again. And the entire system through the logic of capitalism, I won't talk about that, but it collapses and liberalism comes back. But now liberalism has embraced the idea of equality, not.
No, the sound is gone again. It's happening again. And this time I was really watching you slowly break up. The sound got, like you sounded like a robot later. And then it was hard following you, which was why I was making weird faces. And then suddenly sound was gone. But now you're back again. So maybe something with the connection. That's what I thought.
Or something when I talk fast.
No, it's not about you. I've seen you talk faster, and we've done this before, and then the sound was fine. So today really is, I don't know, something is going on.
Something's going on.
And again, I'm totally bringing you out of the concept, but
No,
still,
quite right.
no, the sound is still a bit weird. Say
A bit
something
weird.
again,
Um, 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 um,
but it's
um,
better.
we're talking about eminentizing the eschaton. How about that? I can say that 10 times.
I know something is going on, like oversteered. The sound is kind of breaking up. I
Yeah.
don't know how to describe. It's
Let me
usually the
check
stuff
more.
when you get a weird connection. So maybe it might be
You know what you
gone again
perhaps
in a
should
few
have
minutes.
done
Come again?
is Zoom.
Um,
Zoom.
yeah, we could try that and just
I've had these problems with Zoom before.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just moving through the different. We are not supposed to talk about this, obviously.
About what? About this technical stuff?
Yeah, this is theory, and we are analyzing liberalism and
Right.
picking it
Right.
apart. And
Right.
the more you talk about it, as it's supposed to be, the more I'm sitting here and saying, the fuck? I'm looking at the menu. Why does this burger look like crap? I'm not going to eat. It's like
So,
the same old mode.
in part because there is a sense um, um, of counterculture, which is because this indeed, well, there's an interesting phenomena. Counterculture is basic idea of counterculture is the idea that it is not a bad thing to break the law. It is not a bad thing to break the law.
Yeah,
Um,
that's when you
um,
can just pay the fine and you're
that's right. Just pay the
fine.
fine. That's right.
Just pay the
But
fine. When
even
you can't afford the
more,
fine, then you're, oh, what? You're poor again? Not so much
right,
private property going for you. Oh,
but
that's
counterculture goes deeper.
unfortunate.
There's
I don't
the
know. Maybe
idea.
let's move this to Zoom really, because the
Okay.
sound is not something I want to.
Okay. So I'm gonna get out.
Yes, you could do that, and then send me a link right away. And then I'm trying to distract you all in the meantime, because I think the quality was really bad. I'm going to send them a feedback. Thank you, Facebook. That was fun. Might have been his connection, actually. Something going on there with us picking liberalism apart. So give us a minute or something, and we might already be back for the second part. And why don't you already join us eventually? If you're actually there, could also just call in the Zoom eventually. If I get a link. And tell us how weird this was today, because it feels like extreme. Okay, here we go. Do we have a sound?
Hello.
You sound so
Testing.
good when you sound good. Like actual normal sound. Okay, how can I get? Let me
Okay, so
adjust
it's
this
it's
window.
quiet now.
Let me adjust this window. But we are back, and I can
And
hear you.
I can be here to you in a whisper.
Good. That's bad. Maybe I select the other microphone then.
Sound settings.
No, you already got the good one, the bad one.
A bad one?
Yeah. Maybe just
Uh,
turn up the sound. Must be something in Windows. I don't know. I didn't change anything.
I didn't
That's
change anything
fine.
either. How
Um,
about now? Can you
maybe
hear me?
now I can hear you fine.
Okay,
But
great. I can hear you too.
okay, as long as you can just hear me.
Yeah.
I won't even say much. Promise.
No, no, no. Today is a bad internet day. It's as simple as that. It's the
It's a
weather.
internet day, man.
It's the weather. So I was talking about counterculture. The counterculture is different from a subculture. So surfers are a culture. Sikhs are a subculture. Academics, a subculture, sort of. The idea of a counterculture is that is against it's not a subset, but it is against the major culture. The classic counterculture in America is Black culture. Sometimes for a while it was sometimes it's Hispanic culture, but Hispanic culture is also a subculture. The Black culture is the classic counterculture in America. But along with this is is women. Sometimes it can be said that women are a perpetual counterculture, the legacy of Antigone. During now, stage one of a counterculture is that it doesn't matter if you break the law. It's the idea that the law, even though it might be established by the majority and gone through the institutions, liberal institutions, that something is rotten here, and we're just going to do something else. What is this something else? Well, this was in around the turn of the century, 1800 to 1900. It's natural. What because there was an admission that the state was artifice, that the world is artifice, that the world and artifice both in it was made, but it is also artificial. This is contrasted with what it means to be natural. And what this is Black folk. They are natural. They have rhythm. They talk in an authentic dialogue. They give us jazz. And it's soulful. It's got spirit. At the same time, just after World War II, there was a phenomena, and this is another step, is that it's not so much a bad idea. Breaking the law is not a bad thing to do. Breaking the law is a good thing to do. Breaking the law is a good thing to do. Because when you break the law, you become, well, more natural. And what I mean by the law here is that is simply the way things ought to be. It's more of a cultural ethic. And both Black folks realize, as they have always been treated, they must be against in order to survive. They must set up their own ways of life in order to preserve themselves against institutional white racism. Institutional white racism is against the liberal idea of equality. But still equality as a mechanism to regulate the state. the ultimate counterculture, or the penultimate, is that it's not so much a good thing to break the law, but that it is the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. In other words, it was justice told us that we should not participate in the Vietnam War, that the right thing to do was to disobey the law. And then there is the final step, which is it is a moral imperative to break the law. You must break the law. Revolution is something you must do in order to be free. These are the steps of counterculture. Counterculture is a way, indeed, at the very end, MAGA, Donald Trump represented the counterculture. Let's go back.
Was it really a culture in a strict sense?
Culture,
or was it is even the absence of a real
what I mean by
culture?
Right?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like this.
So counterculture is a culture itself. It's a way of life.
Political will.
No, it's not.
No.
But it is organized through quasi-legal structures. Put it this way, because there was a countercultural movement, oddly enough, of the elite after World War I. And there was an element to this that was feminine in the United States, for one. Feminism starts to develop first with the right to vote, the equal right to vote, but that's classic liberalism, using equality to refine state outputs. There's another sort of more natural. Young women began to started to go to universities and colleges in the 20s. And what they did is they looked at they got out of college, they went home, and they realized that their job, their cultural job, was to get married, have kids, live in a nice house in the suburbs with a white picket fence. And that's it. That's the end. Their only choice in life was to choose a man. Then their lives were essentially over. In other words, their lives were predictable. And here's the worst word of all, boring. And you start to get a rebellion by young women who say, this is not natural. It's all artificial. And you get a underground, small liberal move. Not liberal. This is what I mean by culture. Is that the culture is that women get married, meet a husband, get a house, have kids. That's it. That's the cultural norm.
Or not. But now,
or not.
The norms kind of shifted. That's kind of.
That's right.
Also, our
step out of it.
Our thing here, how value lives in the now, the value of liberalism, and it seems to be.
And they become flappers. They dance to jazz music.
Yes.
And they get natural.
Oh my God, hip hop.
In speakeasies. At the same time, throughout the 20s, don't forget, alcohol is illegal. But in another sense, not unlike drugs, is that it is perfectly legal. In a particular cultural milieu, you can, if you know the rules, you can get a drink in a speakeasy. If you know the rules, you can get drugs. You just have to know how to play that culture. Mm-hmm. In other words, there are a group of people who have their own rules, their own norms, through which you can buy LSD.
Oh, that's surprising.
Yeah. In other words, LSD is understood or is a culture. It's a counter culture, the idea that it's a good thing to break the law. Then there is Freud with the idea of his idea of natural, which is the libido. And the idea that the problem with the modern world is that the libido is suppressed. Then there is the speaking, drinking alcohol. It's okay to break the law. And the counterculture goes to the middle class, white male middle class. There's a sense of there is the established legal sense of the rule of law, but there's another set of norms that are counter. Now, there is a third set of law, which is the culture of capitalism. This falls apart in the 30s. One of the first things that Roosevelt does, FDR, is that he gets rid of prohibition and eliminates that counterculture. By the way, the mafia is a counterculture, but also sort of a subculture. There is a sense of, but by the way, there is a sense Trump's counterculture is the natural man, is aggressive masculinity, released libido. The lion is now not the state, but the anti-state. Things are, of course, reversed. Roosevelt realizes that that the only way to counter the logic of capitalism, and this is a slow realization on his part, but it's not only him, it's America, is to construct state institutions for another purpose, and that is social welfare. So liberalism started out as legal or constitutional proceduralism. But Roosevelt realizes that you need another principle, and that's the state, and this is in the Constitution, for the good.
His Bismarck moment, realizing, oh man,
yes.
we could have a revolution on our hands if we don't do anything about this part here.
But liberalism makes a move. What it does, or F.D.R. liberalism does, because it refashions individual rights and autonomy with equality in civil society. And this is the idea that you can't truly be autonomous if there is drastic inequality in the economy. In other words, you can't be an autonomous small business owner if your sphere of business is dominated by monopolies. You can't, your vote means nothing compared to a millionaire. That in order to have political equality, liberal equality, you also need social equality. And in this way, equality is snuck in the back door through the principle of social welfare, but established with this sense of indeed what we call the culture not of the state, but a culture of what Roosevelt calls Americanism. Well, this is what actually is lying underneath. This is the nation. The nation is what you're born into. It's natural. Indeed, when you become a citizen, we call it naturalization, which means that you are a citizen able to participate, a citizen who is a member of a nation. You're now an American.
Yeah.
This Americanism is identified with Churchill, by FDR as being equality. We are all we're all the same, and Roosevelt has the common touch. Roosevelt is crucial, and indeed central to this system is changing media. At first, progressivism had a theory that newspapers were really crucial to this. When progressivism first develops in the 1890s, their enemy were political parties, corruption. But it was through political parties that people learned how to vote, that people were educated in the political system. Well, this was corrupt. This was corrupt because it violated the principles of equal rights of a pure voting system. So we set up the voting registration. A number of laws were passed to clean up parties, because parties, if you get your resources and information from the parties, they are a system in which public and private are adulterated.
Yeah, you should try that and follow Mr. Donald on Trump Social and take that as your only source of information.
Yes. So the idea, the progressives launched on the idea of a free press, which was neutral, which was objective. However, they were serious about what they were doing. They knew that there's no such thing as objectivity. That every claim to objective news was based on some subjective framework. So the line was, we can never be sure. We can never claim objectivity. We have principles about what we're going to publish. What we're going to do is be forthright about our principles and announce them. We are going to announce them on the editorial section.
Which is actually a pretty ingenious idea when you think about it, because you don't have to really worry about objectivity in a sense, because that's already an abstraction, an idea of sorts. You have to be educated on that, whatever. If you get to surround this enemy with multiple subjectivities that, in sense, all control each other, work on each other, and in this way create something like objectivity.
So there's an so the point is to be, okay, yes, all news is biased. Well, we're going to tell you our biases. This is not unlike the idea of science. Science proceeds in terms of a literature of journals in which scientific findings are publicized and spread out among scientists. Science is a community. It is a community. These journals are established based on principles both connected to the particular field and to a notion of publicity and honesty. We have the editorial page, and the editorial page is where the editorial or the editor reveals his or her principles, opinions, so that you know what the biases are. Then we got another addition, and that's the op-ed pages. Not only are the editors going to be honest about their principles and their opinions, but there's going to be a page opposing that page on the other side, the op-ed page, in which they invite others to argue, to reveal their opinions that might differ from the editorial page. And here what we get is what we call official or traditional public opinion. And it is in public opinion that we have a new stage of politics, from in which people exchange ideas and now have a different, but it's a public thing. Which means that the idea is that nobody dominates this.
Supposedly.
The idea also is that arguments are made to advance the public interest. Now, the public interest can be addressed to the private world. It is in the public interest that the private world is properly regulated, so that we don't have poison in our food. But also that we can be protected. You could take this a little too far and say we need to be protected from poisonous ideas. Now the technology changes. So newspapers become the center journalists of progressivism. And what we get is the idea, what they realize is they have another interest, that's selling papers. And what they realize sells papers is scandal, corruption, violation of the public good. Indeed, you still see this in news TV shows in which the whole point is to uncover scandal because it's a violation of public norms and it violates certain principles and it gets people interested. This is transformed once again technologically, which Marx believes, and with very good reason, is the locomotive of revolutions. Though a lot of things are the locomotive of revolution, and that's the radio. And this is a new medium of technology, and a man who is the genius at it is Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt has something, well, he has what's known as the common touch. It's Americanism. It's the idea that everybody is fundamentally good. Fundamentally good. Roosevelt knew that his job was to make the press feel good. When you listen to Roosevelt's speeches, you felt like you had just were listening to your new best friend. Roosevelt always had a smile. We have one thing to fear, and that is fear itself.
Oh yeah.
But there is also, here's another genius of Roosevelt. So every Friday, he would get together with members of the press, and they'd sit around in the Oval Office and drink whiskey and just talk. Roosevelt was a genius in this way.
Yeah.
And
Prevented a lot of critical articles.
He would just talk with these guys. And every once in a while, he would say, he'd be, so here's a classic Roosevelt move. So he stood there talking, drank whiskey, and he says, you know, I've got this water problem in Colorado. I'm not really quite sure what to do with it. Then he'll turn to one guy and says, you, Frank, you come from Colorado, the Denver press. What do you think about this water problem? And so Frank, the White House correspondent from Denver, is all of a sudden flustered. Oh my goodness, the president is asking me for advice. And Frank from the Denver Post says, well, Mr. President, I think this, and this. And the next bill that goes through Congress, supported by the president, lo and behold, Frank's suggestion is in the bill. And Frank thinks, the president listens to me. In other words, Roosevelt would give the press little favors like this. The press loved him. The press loved him. Now, who is Ronald Reagan's favorite? Now, he's critical of him, but Ronald Reagan's favorite president, his hero, was F.D.R. Why? Because F.D.R. changed America. F.D.R. gave people hope. F.D.R. made Americanism good again. F.D.R. through this idea of the common man, which Reagan stole. Reagan said, I'm just a guy. But at the same time, people said people would say, oh, he's just an actor. Reagan had a beautiful response to this. Well, of course I'm an actor. You can't be a president of the United States without being an actor. Duh. Politics is theater. You didn't know that?
Surprisingly honest.
That
times,
was Reagan's. He was honest,
at
and
times,
he embraced it. He embraced it,
like this
and
one
and
moment
indeed,
when he came to realize that he did in fact exchange weapons for hostages with terrorists in South America.
and you know what he
His
claims?
speech was just terrific. Was this
He
in
says,
my heart? I feel it's
"That's
still
right,
the truth. We didn't deal well. They didn't
right." He
exchange
says
weapons
that.
for.
That's
He
amazing.
just straight
But
up.
but
He says
but
that,
he
but the facts and the evidence
say
says
otherwise.
the opposite.
Yes. Well, what is Reagan doing that is brilliant?
Wow, that's
It's brilliant because he admits that he doesn't know,
right.
which
Straight up.
Donald Trump can't do. This is the difference between Trump and Reagan.
There you go.
Reagan learns from FDR, but Reagan is a liberal in the sense of liberal autonomy, in the sense of the private sphere of Snug the joiner. Reagan sees the common man as the businessman, as the small business owner who is responsible for the jobs of maybe 20 people. Roosevelt in the 30s and 40s praised the unions. The unions were a means by which to, well, they're what Hegel calls the corporations. They are not unlike the guilds. They are they are institutions, organizations to protect one's members. So union benefits, but only if you belong to the union. These unions, these corporations, as Hegel would call them, and again, they're corporations because you get your benefits because you're a member. They counterbalance the capitalist revival. The capitalist system revives through deficit spending, flooding the economy with money, and also the fact that America now has won the war, controls the world, and has access to all the resources. The problem, indeed, is that America has too much. We are producing too much, and we have to sell it. We have to realize the value we put into making these cars. Because, okay, we've made cars, but that doesn't help us. We've made refrigerators, we've made motorcycles and radios, we've made this stuff, but it's no good unless we have money. You got to sell it, which Marx calls realizing the profit. The only problem is that in order to buy this stuff, the consumers need money. Where do they get money? Well, we are going to print it and send it to them. This is called the Marshall Plan. This is what we're going to do is we're going to ship money overseas so they can buy our goods.
It worked for the Germans.
It worked very well for the Germans.
Real good
America,
Wirtschaftswunder right there.
but it also worked for Japan, for South Korea, for Taiwan. Because America was sending dollars out into the world because the only one who produced the good stuff were the Americans. This we call dollar hegemony. And indeed, there is a hegemony. America established global hegemony. And also, this is through not only do unions grow, but small business grows. And so we have again the small business proceeds in terms of the logic of civil society, which of course is more authentic. It's not created by the state. It's created through values. Individuals who are brave, who withhold from consumption, who reinvest their profits, who are hero bourgeois, petty bourgeois. These folks, these folks understand what holds it all together is the notion of rights. Indeed, through the 60s and into the 70s, rights talk is adopted by the counterculture. What the Black movements realize through the NAACP is that they need to win through this new idea of equality, and equal rights, access to schools, access to careers, non-discrimination, neutrality. This is the idea that we can win through claiming rights in the judicial system. But here's the problem. Organizing in terms of rights is isolating. Individual rights are inherently individual things. So it's rights for Black folks. There's right for women. But when you establish these rights, you are isolating yourself from your potential allies. It used to be that politics was all about parties and that you gained benefits through membership in a party. But now people claim benefits in terms of rights. The problem is that rights sort of break apart popular participation, prevents coalitions from forming. And that's exactly what happened in the Reagan era. To explain hegemony, when you watch a baseball game, who has the real power? Well, the real power is held by the heavy hitters and good pitchers. No, the real power is held by the umpires. They're the ones who say what's a home run and what's a foul ball. No, the problem, the power is held by the baseball team owners. The baseball team owners. They are the ones who make the rules. And one thing they know is that baseball only works if there are losers. One team can't win all the time. This is the power of hegemony again. So we have, so in other words, and this is what America enjoyed through the 50s, 60s, and 70s, is the idea that America makes the rules, so America can take hits. Real power is when you have the power to lose. So we might lose here with affirmative action. We might lose here with this anti-monopoly case. We might lose a war here, a war there, but in the end, we have real power. This is the power of the managers. It's like rights. Again, when you make an argument for your individual rights, you're essentially adding to a system that is dedicated to the preservation of private property, because private property is also a right. The rights are were the American system of hegemony. Nobody talks about rights anymore, not now. But rights were the NAACP and Black folks took to the streets demanding rights through the judicial system, forgetting that the judicial system was really a holdover from F.D.R. liberalism, which is based on the idea of equality, and Americanism, which did not look at racism, which believed in the single nation. So we have two notions of liberalism, actually three. One from the top, proceduralism, automaticity, with the idea of equality being mechanisms through which inputs and outputs are regulated. Then we have liberalism of the private sector. The first one is freedom as power to act through the state. Freedom here is empowerment. because you're more empowered as a citizen. But liberalism now is also freedom from the state, freedom from others. So freedom works as a community to act in the world, but freedom is also the ability to be yourself in resistance from the world. Freedom is two things. It's the ability to act once in the private sector, but again in the public sector. But at the same time, it's to be free to do something, but to be free from something, from others in the private sector, criminals, but others in the public sector, which are overbearing majorities. Liberalism is all four of these things at once. The third thing is liberalism as social welfare, which is now currently slandered by Trump. But there's also liberalism as libertarianism, which is a full-blown theory of democracy, but a weird kind. So in 1960, John F. Kennedy makes, in his inaugural address, says, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country." This is citizenship. This is acting through government to do great things like go to space. This is the lion of the state, quasi-fascist because it is often militaristic. But however, it's also the same as Periclean democracy. The idea that democracy, indeed, Aristotle says democracy is preferred because it's the strongest. Mostly we think today of liberal Democrats as being weaklings, but democracy brings the mass of people into the state, which empowers it. But that's exactly what fascism is as well. John F. Kennedy is American fascism with a friendly face. But another guy in 1962 writes a book, and he calls it Capitalism and Freedom. And his name is Milton Friedman. And he has the nerve to start out his book attacking John F. Kennedy by saying, no, don't expect your country to help you. And freedom is not gained through the state. Freedom is gained opposed to the state. Freedom is individual autonomy. Freedom is not the freedom of the American people. Freedom is not a matter of citizenship. Freedom is a matter of being autonomous in civil society. Indeed, if it's all about choice, if it's all about decision making, and the people deciding things, well, through what institution do people make their autonomous decisions? They don't make it. You only vote, once every 2 or 3 years. But you make decisions in the marketplace every day. In other words, the market is the democratic sector par excellence. Why? Because that's where the people make decisions on their own. Milton Friedman comes out and he says that libertarianism is really democracy. It's the ability of the people to make their own lives, to decide what they're going to do as decision makers, choosing in a marketplace. And he's kind of right there. He's kind of right.
He doesn't know advertisement and PR, but yeah,
I'm sure, but politics is all about advertisement and PR.
Yeah.
The president, Reagan, was honest.
developing products for some consumer market, you also have to develop on the fly, and then you put in planned obsolescence, so you get more consumer faster. So who cares about the product, really? It's just
So what we have
money.
here, well, that's true, but you and I are discerning product choosers. And that
Okay.
makes us free. When Reagan talks about the people, he is talking about the people or people. Sometimes you say people. People make their own decisions in life, right? This is where you get character and value. When Reagan talks about values, he's talking about values of the people writ small, the average American. And that's what Reagan is. He's using Milton Friedman's idea that real democracy is a cultural thing which allows allows for a not so much public in the sense of publicity, but private freedom, even though it's held together by its own public world of advertising. Liberalism is scattered all over the map here. Then there's liberal managers. These are the people who think that they can manage America as a world power through soft power. In other words, liberal managerial liberalism is sort of like is the idea of being a state leader, but to fight communism. And to fight communism, so they claim that they were liberals, even though they were responsible for the Vietnam War. Liberalism becomes a word to identify both friends and enemies. It's not really quite clear what it is, but we say it all the time.
Liberals.
Or neoliberalism. When I first heard the word neo, what in the fuck does that mean? Because I'm not even quite sure what liberalism means. Because all of these ways of using that word are now we're now here. Well, what do you mean by liberalism? What? Then there's the counterculture. What happens at the same time in underground is a new counterculture in the 50s and 60s, and that is rock and roll. And rock and roll is first in black folks. You can listen to tracks laid down in the early 50s by black artists, black female artists, which are just like Led Zeppelin. They are classic blues riffs that we call rock and roll. But Elvis Presley takes these on, but he had to stop because he was sounding too much like a black guy. Elvis Presley brings sexuality to rock and roll. And the thing is that because it works through advertising, you can't stop it because it's a matter of private freedom. And young folks love rock and roll because it is flat out sexy. Indeed, dancing is flat out sexy. Dancing is a way to display sexuality. And indeed, then there's some else that black folks do. That black musicians, well, before they start to play, they smoke a joint. They smoke marijuana, and the thing about marijuana is that it is connective. When you smoke a joint with someone, you connect with them. As opposed to cocaine, you are isolated as your own sort of superpower. But marijuana connects people. And here we get the idea that smoking pot is not a bad thing. It's against the law, but it's not bad. In fact, it's better than alcohol because you don't tend not to get violent. People die from alcohol. You don't die from marijuana. Marijuana, well, breaking the law is a good thing for young white people. And now you get the realization they start to take LSD. And now what you get is a full-blown counterculture. What I mean by this is that the people who benefit the most from a society, from a culture, are the young. They did nothing to get all the things that they get. But when young people turn against the system that gives them everything that they have, and for everything that they get all that they want, and then they say, well, fuck the system. I'm going to smoke dope. I'm going to take LSD. And they discover a whole new worlds of connection. Indeed, when we were taking LSD, if there was one phrase that we love to say, it all relates. It all relates. Everything relates. And you understand the world in terms of vibration. Then comes the Vietnam War. And you realize that it is not only a good thing to break the law when you take LSD. This is a good thing. But it is a moral imperative to break the law. So you get this idea that the law itself must be broken in order for you to live a moral life. And the counterculture is now taken up by the folks who go to Ivy League schools and connected with all this rock and roll, all with gospel music and country music and old rhythm and blues and jazz put together in this new form that internationalizes the counterculture. And now you get a celebration of spontaneity, a celebration of artistry. You get spontaneous moments and like Woodstock, and the sense of a movement, which is not a matter, is not controlled by the state, but by virtue of being outside the state, is inherently political. I say it's political because it's a good thing to break the law. It's a moral imperative to break the law.
Reminds me
Except,
also from a
yeah,
story. I'm actually not even sure that actually might be a half truth, so careful with this one. But I heard that this was also very common in France at the time.
yeah,
They
yeah, everywhere. Yeah,
were pretty much at every roundabout, and they have a lot in France, like in all residential areas, there are roundabouts. People were actually meeting up. That's
yes,
something that came up in the Yellow Vest movement as
yeah,
well again, where this, so the political is always present, and it
yes.
might come through in those moments of connection.
The bummer was when we found out that Richard Nixon broke the law. And now things get serious because now we find ourselves defending the law because we realize that capitalists and rich people, they can be lawbreakers as well. Their only problem is that they have difficulty justifying it in terms of traditional notions of equality and liberalism. So they rely on to justify their breaking of the law, Americanism, values, and not being a stinky, smelly hippie. So what you get is a reaction to the counterculture. Nixon here is brilliant. Nixon is one of the true geniuses of American politics. Nixon, what he does is that, first off, he monetizes the Great Society. Nixon eliminates education programs. He eliminates programs that help communities. tries to defund Head Start. But at the same time, he increases monetary transfer payments. He makes it easier to get on welfare. In other words, he monetizes the New Deal. And to this extent, he keeps the working poor on his side. In other words, he acts like a liberal. Furthermore, he still relies on this notion of education, the best and the brightest. He is trying to get peace. Now, of course, one thing that we know now is that Reagan was a traitor, to the extent that in 1972 or in 1971, there are peace talks. I don't know if you know this. A lot of people don't like to talk about it. It's that before the peace talks in Paris, before his re-election in 72, they're happening in fall, and he sends a delegate. The South Vietnamese and North Vietnamese are about to come with a treaty. Nixon contacts, as a private citizen, he contacts the South Vietnamese and says, don't make this deal. When I'm elected president, I will give you a better deal. In other words, he substantively sabotages the American peace effort.
Just like
And
Boris
then
Johnson did in the Ukraine deal
yeah,
they allegedly already had done in Turkey. When was it? Years back.
this is flat out traitor. This is treason. But Nixon gets in, and what does Nixon do? He keeps the war going for another 4 years. Or actually another 2 years, because he needed to end it on his terms, and he needed to be slow in ending it because the American economy depended on defense spending. Because don't forget, we're still shipping money out. Nixon transforms the welfare state from an empowerment state to a money state. And he has 2 wars going. Nixon doesn't end the war on poverty, he monetizes it. So Nixon is printing money out and shipping it out. And then all of a sudden, surprise, surprise, inflation. We can no longer ship money out. What does Nixon do? Nixon is a socialist. He sets up wage and price controls. He does
Sound of that.
everything. In other words, whoa, all of a sudden Nixon is acting like an he's violating free market principles. Plus, but at the same time, poor people get money. He gave everything to everybody. But he kept one group open as his enemy. And what's the enemy? Because here is the claim. Every argument, every action has it is justified the fact that there is a problem. And if there is a problem, there's a troublemaker. Why aren't things perfect? You have all the power. Why aren't things perfect? Because somebody out there is being evil. Who is it? It's liberals. Reagan attacked liberals. He attacked hippies. He attacked the marijuana. He attacked students. He attacked. He did so much attack. He attacked left-wing professors. Reagan. Not Reagan. Nixon attacked liberalism as an idea, but he acted like a social democrat liberal when it came to sustaining the system, when it came to his actual policies of wage and price controls. So here's the problem. Carter comes in after Nixon, and Nixon has been pouring money into the national economy and into the international economy, and he's kept the lid on inflation with wage and price controls. Nixon's gone, and all of a sudden the economy is let loose and prices skyrocket. Jimmy Carter inherited Nixon's mess. Furthermore, Jimmy Carter, by the way, played Nixon's game. What's the game? Well, he did something that even Johnson didn't do. Johnson identified with the civil rights movement. Ultimately, he had to, because that was where the force of American public opinion was driving, out of horror and shock at white racism in the South. But in other words, Nixon realized that you get power by attacking the status quo. Liberalism, and hippies and all these women who were doing wild and crazy things at these rock concerts, and women's lib and all that stuff that is just. Bleh. And then what people realize is that you can win in the system by establishing yourself as an outsider from the system. And Carter wins because he says, I'm an outsider. I am coming from outside Washington, from the South. I'm a Christian, and Washington is dirty, and I'm going to clean it up. Congress is dirty, going to clean it up. During the Carter era, Teddy Kennedy came out with a complete healthcare system. That just like the ones that you folks have everywhere else, well, everybody else has in the world. Carter says no. Carter stops it. People say, "Oh, great Jimmy Carter. He has values. He's a good man." But he stopped the welfare system, the health system, our healthcare, because we couldn't afford it. Of course, now we realize that our corrupt healthcare system, as it's run by insurance companies, which do nothing for health, have made trillions of dollars. Now we are paying 100 times over to these health insurance companies, and that's because of Carter. Why? Because he didn't trust Congress. Congress was corrupt. Why? Because of the old Democratic Party politicians. Carter hung out with Bob Dylan, but indeed Dylan went through a Christian phase. But Carter it also tried to be the common man, but Carter couldn't handle inflation. And with inflation, at a certain point, it became unemployment, because prices were going crazy, and this meant that some small businesses couldn't compete. And then we had Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan sees with Jimmy Carter that you can win by Richard Nixon, you can win by being an outsider. And that's what he runs on. And that is the beginning of Trumpism. But Reagan is still, here's the weird thing about Reagan. He's a good guy. He's got the common touch. He's funny. He loves America. He loves the common man. Trump hates the common man. Trump, Reagan talks about his family that were poor and climbed themselves and were always lower middle class, but they were honest people. Trump thinks that he came out and said in the very beginning in 2016, he said, there will be no poor people in my cabinet. I only want billionaires. Trump is the anti-Reagan, but he runs as an outsider. Trump says, I'm a Christian president. But Reagan, but by the way, Reagan came all this stuff about God and religion, but Reagan went to church maybe 4 or 5 times. Trump, he sucked up to the Christians, but acted in the most unchristian manner. Trump, cursing, being a slob. Trump is his own countercultural figure. He is the mafia. He's the mob. He's a mob boss. He knows that everything is power. Liberalism, neoliberalism, whatever, doesn't make a difference. What it is will. It's just will. Trump twists. Trump is not Reagan. He doesn't have the common touch. He isn't funny. In fact, when he tries to be funny, it's a cringeworthy.
The twist is so absurd, like totally laughable at this point. It's just insurrection. That was the word.
By the way, every attack. Well, another underlying thing is the attack on started with Nixon, but then perfected by Trump, is the attack on Black folks and the attack on women. The idea, the strongest attacks of affirmative action is the idea that Black people somewhere are getting something without working for it. That you have to work. Even though we have plenty, even though evidently, as I understand it, we could enjoy the same standard of living today if everybody worked 4 hours a day. But no, people have to work all day.
Work sets you free, man.
You can't get any. If you get something without working for it, even though we've got plenty of it, that's a sin. That's a sin. You got to work for it. Even though there's plenty of it around, it's just held by those guys over there.
They're not working.
They're not working at all. But the idea that Black people are getting something that they didn't work for is the one secret thing that just pissed off white folks. If you're going to work against the welfare state, if you're going to work against the poor, what you do is that you threaten the people who are just above the poor, the lower middle class. You say you are getting screwed by those people who live in the other neighborhood. You threaten the lower middle class with well, maybe the people who really threaten you are the people who live in India, the people who live just over the hill. They're the bad guys. Whereas the people who live 1,000 miles away, you have no idea what they're doing. But they're the ones who control the interest rates. What this is racism and ultimately anti-feminism. I think it's because, and here this may be way off. Men don't, and maybe it's an American thing. I would say the majority of men may love their wives. By not about 65%, 60%. They may love their wives, but they don't like women. They love their wives. They love their mom, but they don't like women. Whereas women are the other way around. 60% of women like men.
You might be on to something there. We talked a bit about psychoanalysis. In this context with Fromm and in his analysis of all this, and he brought up the death cult and this drive.
It is, yes.
There is something about the woman impersonating life by being able to give birth, and
yes,
then men having their own experience with that, which might be mixed bag, relations with
I
the
think
mother,
it's
whatever. And
I think it's
then,
more a matter of sexual attraction.
yeah,
The thing
that
is,
as well. And then
yeah,
patriarchy also as a reactionary response to all
yeah,
that
to
attraction
all that.
and all that power that
Yeah,
had to be dealt with in a physical and oppressive
yeah.
manner in order to
And
keep
the thing is,
sane and get to work and get more kids and keep the system going, because it's somehow also about that, about relationship, about marriages, all this kind of weird cultural system we've built to deal with our
but
interpersonal
the
relationships.
thing is that it is also Americanism.
Yeah,
It
yeah, or
is
whatever country.
Americanism as a dark side, which Trump is playing on. In fact, no, he's very honest about it. When there was an accident in like the second week of Trump's presidency, there was an accident with a military helicopter and an airplane,
Oh yeah, he
and about
immediately
60 people died. And Trump's
blacks.
first response, he said, "This is because of affirmative action."
Mhm.
He said, "This is because I'm sure that we're going to find out that the pilot of the helicopter was a black man."
Mhm.
Next time, I am going to talk about ideology within this system, what it means, how we make arguments, and the we is always a big deal because, as Hegel always says, as well as the Hindus, is that if you want to know how the world works, look into yourself. This whole a deeper structural map of how this all works together: counter hegemony, friends, enemies. Plot this through the idea of ideology. And it is not only a map of the way the world works, it's the way we make arguments. And I'm going to refer back to the short history that I just went through, that I promised when I could do it in 20 minutes.
That was surprisingly optimistic of you.
Yes. But now we know what we're going to do next week. And it's been more than 2 hours.
Oh man,
I
what a
know.
day. What a
It's been a
day.
day.
It's mostly on me with the
No.
technical difficulties and whatever. And then
That's only
also
responsible for half an hour. And
on,
I had my share of technical difficulties as well. But
on weird
who knows?
corporate superstructures cutting out microphones
That's
and whatever.
For all we know right now, because I assume what we haven't been doing is what I do for 2 to 3 hours a day, is that I read the news. And I assume that we haven't been doing this. Who knows what's been happening in the last 2 to 3 hours? There may have been nuclear weapons launched. For all we know, World War III may be happening out there. There may have been,
I'm still
100 people shot in Minneapolis, for all we know. Jesus.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
For whatever this was, I think no, you have this again, descriptive statements, and I'm losing it because you're really thorough, and in essence, every time I come over it, I just realize, oh wow, whoops, there's more ammunition in my pack now, and that's actually highly useful to criticize liberalism.
Yes.
Yeah, actually know your enemy on that level. So,
the thing is that we are stuck with liberalism. When we make a plea, so when people are in the streets, what they say is, against ICE, you're violating our constitutional rights to free assembly.
Oh yeah.
That's a liberal argument.
And then lame ducks just demanding that they keep on get trained, so stuff like this doesn't happen. And there's few people like our comrade Samdani from New York who says we need to abolish ICE.
Yes.
You know, that's
here's the thing. Here's the flaw in any constitutional system, and that is emergency. So Trump says, look, Nixon says this, in extraordinary times, the president needs to be able to act quickly with great power to protect the nation because it's a state of emergency. So what and everybody agrees, you know, you do need somebody who has access to the mechanisms of security in a state of emergency. Well, the only problem is that Trump himself is the cause of the emergency. And furthermore, that capitalism itself is a destructive force which constantly creates emergencies. Capitalism is responsible for pulling people up into America, up into the United States, because capitalism needs cheap labor. The system, the real problem is that all these, you could say, is because of capitalists' need to lower their labor costs. But no, it's a state of emergency because it threatens Americanism. It's a state of emergency. The emergency president is what. So Trump is saying, look, we have to do this because, by God, the law has been broken. And look at you people. You are in the way of us protecting Americans for the law. And it's an emergency because Minneapolis is full of corruption that was started by the welfare state working with Somalians. In other words, it's not so much ICE justifies itself because it's an emergency. What bothers them is that the people they're supposed to be saving, the people of Minneapolis, because hey, if illegal immigrants are a real threat, you would think the people of Minneapolis would support ICE. But evidently it's not, they're not a real threat. People don't think of illegal aliens, if you want to call them that, as being a threat. They kind of like them. They make for good neighbors. They commit less crime. They work harder. But no, it's against the law, and we have to obey the law. There's a sense of urgency and a sense of emergency. And this is what how Trump justifies it, or how he has. But don't forget, Trump is a failure. It's just that it's going to get worse before it gets better. Okay, so next time I'm going to be more frameworky, more to help. And don't forget, what you said is exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to provide mechanisms and tools by which to understand what's going on. And this is ideology. So hegemony is about the political culture in as a way of life. But also at the same time, there's counter hegemony. These are sort of states. They're sort of cultures. There are things within which we live. Ideology are the arguments we make. And I want to talk about the arguments we make so that we can make better arguments. Okay?
Okay. Sounds good to me. Okay. We've been going on for quite a while. Today was quite a day. Again, I don't know. Do we want to do a second half for viewers to chime
I'm
in?
good with not doing the second half, but I'm also good with doing it.
Then not today.
Yeah, but not today.
Then not today.
This is an ongoing discussion. Put it this way,
long.
I won't forget anything.
Yeah,
Because
might.
I won't forget anything.
I can do
Okay?
that for you. No problem.
Okay. So next Sunday, unless I'm preempted.
Good. There might be also another one coming up with our friends Sally and Alex next week.
Right. So I backed
so.
out from that.
Oh wow! For now, you still do?
So
Or
I think you saw. So I contacted them.
Oh, we should talk
on
about
Axel's
that
podcast
behind the
on
screen.
Facebook. Yeah. Let's shut it off and talk.
All right.
I'm going to contact you again. I'm going to get out and then Zoom you back again. Okay.
Okay. Let me hit the button. Bye, people.